Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 10 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, Wednesday night, June 29th. And this is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is up to us. 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And chat room's open. I did pop the link in there. Oh, no, I didn't pop any links in there yet, but I will. I did open the chat room, though, so that's available there if anybody would like to sit in there. And, I'm just going to sort of go on a little rant here tonight, I think. I found a few articles that I kind of want to take a look at. And just appreciate everybody who's taking the time to listen to my shows. It's just awesome. I have like 32,500 shows listened to. That's a lot of shows. I've done about, 720 shows or something, but just on my own shows. I've done some, probably about 500 Dreamcatcher shows as well. So I've done a lot of shows, but I appreciate everybody who's taking the time to listen to what I have to say about child abuse prevention, and just taking the time to listen. It's a lot of work to listen to a lot of these blog talk programs. There's so many I want to listen to, and I just don't have time. You know what I mean? Like I work full time, and I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and just got promoted to President-elect to sit on the board of directors for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, which is just awesome. Great honor, and a great position, and I'll be able to learn lots. But I'm just real busy, and I don't have time to listen to so many shows, and there's so many shows I want to listen to. So, I know how hard it is. So I do appreciate everybody who's taken the time to actually tune into my shows on a regular basis. I have people who listen, regularly, and I appreciate it very much. Tonight I wanted to talk about some of the articles that I found on this particular website, Child Welfare Information Gateway. They have a library, and I signed up to receive their information. It just pops into my inbox, and it's all dealing with child welfare in the news. So every day I have all these emails that pop into my inbox regarding what's happening out there dealing with child welfare, and the issues that are surrounding the whole issue of child abuse prevention and child abuse, and the even issues such as domestic violence and foster care situations, and just whatever's happening, right? So whatever's happening in the news. And so I get this news daily, and some of these articles are just really quite interesting. And I just want to take a look at one of them in particular tonight. It's kind of going around the web as well on Facebook and whatnot, and was posted also on our website, Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. Sandra Potter actually posted this article as well from the link on our website and other places. So it's just worth taking a look at. But there's a lot of people talking about it, and it's the article about the positive drug test will lead to child abuse hotline referral, and it was Tampa Bay Online, June 28th, posted yesterday, June 28th, 2011. So DCF positive drug test will lead to child abuse hotline referral. So that's kind of what I want to take a look at, and a few more articles. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it. And, listen at your own discretion to all of my shows. I'm talking about abuse. It's a very sensitive subject. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't minimize it. I tell it like it is, because I figure I have so many years left on the planet, and I may as well use my voice and do what I can to be as honest and real about child abuse and the issues that surround it as possible. There's a whole lot of people that like to minimize abuse. There's a lot of people that think we should. There's a lot of people that think that abuse should be hidden under the carpet and that no one should be talking about it. There's still a lot of people that are very backward thinking and think that abuse should just be allowed to continue on and that it's nobody's business, when actually it's everyone's business. Human rights are all of our business, and child rights are human rights. And so we all have to stand up and take responsibility for this. And it is our responsibility. Whether people want to take on that role or not is up to them. But I don't know how people can really sleep at night without considering the fact that this is going on, this is happening, and children really are so vulnerable. They need every voice that they can get. They need all the help they can get. And so if we're not going to change this, which generation are we going to leave this up to? That's my big thing. It's kind of like, okay, if we're not going to... I finally got off the couch, knowing what I had known, growing up the way that I had grown up. I talk about this quite a bit on my shows, actually. And, coming from the type of home that I came from, which was complete abuse. I mean, we're talking disgusting, disgraceful, hurtful violence and abuse of every type, of all types. And, to sit there and sit on the couch was killing me. To not say something, to not open my mouth, to be silent, to wear that duct tape over my mouth, and just to sit there like I guess I was supposed to, and not ever tell anybody about the abuse, and not ever get involved, and just sit there, knowing what these children are going through, and what people are going through all over the world. And so, I thought, okay, it's my time to get off the couch. I can no longer sit around and just let other people do the work. Why am I not doing something? Why am I not saying something? And it started to bother me, and it really got under my skin, especially after I saw I saw something on TV that just really changed my mind about the whole thing. And I thought, and it didn't even have anything to do with child abuse. It was about domestic violence. But the thing is it really bothered me, and I thought, why am I not doing something? I grew up in this mess. I grew up watching my family be destroyed by abuse and garbage, and other people's families. And what, I'm going to sit here and not say anything? So it made sense for me to get involved. But, for everybody, not everybody's going to want to do public advocacy or talk, publicly about these things. But we can all get involved in ways in which we can help to change this. And mainly that is to get involved as far as getting the education and knowing the signs and symptoms of abuse, knowing how to report it, knowing that you should. If you know a child is being abused, you need to do the right thing and make a phone call, even anonymously, but get that child some help. We can save children's lives, so it's very important. So, you have to listen to my shows at your own discretion, because really I'm just saying it like it is, and I don't sugarcoat it. I just tell it like it is. And so, it is disturbing. It is very disturbing. I had to live with this my whole life, I had to live with the disturbing thoughts and memories and flashbacks of what happened to me personally, as well as what happened to my siblings, as well as to what happened to my mother, and the knowledge of what it did to my family. So, you want to talk about disturbing. Many people know about my story because they listen to my One Child Abuse Survivor to Another program in the morning. And that is my healing journey, and that's I'm talking about how disturbing it was. And it was very disturbing. And child abuse is very disturbing. And so abuse of any type, right? So you have to know what's good for you to listen to. So make sure that you're comfortable listening to these types of topics, and make sure that it's not going to bother you. It is ultimately your discretion when you listen to my shows. So you make sure that you're making the right choice for yourself and listen at your own discretion. Young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my shows, because I'm all about protecting children and saving children's lives. That's what I'm doing. And so, you need to learn how to keep yourself safe. If you're under the age of 18, you need to have an adult, a parent, caregiver, somebody, hopefully. I didn't have parents who cared about me, so I know very well what it's like to have parents who do not and are not there for their children and do not care. Then possibly find a coach, a mentor, somebody you trust, someone in your family, outside of the family unit, like a relative or something, somebody who's older who can help you make a decision whether you should be listening to my shows or not, age appropriately, because I have no idea how young the kids are and young people are that are listening to my shows. So if you're young and you're under the age of 18, have someone listen to the show with you who's an adult who can help you make a decision whether or not you should be listening. I really appreciate that. Thanks very much. So we'll get right into this. This is Child Welfare in the News, and this particular article, DCF positive drug test will lead to child abuse hotline referral. This is really quite interesting. I know a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people have different mixed views on it. That's why I kind of wanted to bring it up. I love to talk about the stuff that is controversial, because child abuse is controversial. Many people say it's okay to beat a child, to rape a child, to burn a child, torture a child, kill a child. Lots of people think it's wonderful, and lots of people think it's great to be able to kick around a child and use a child for their own sexual purposes and do whatever they want to children. Well, these are sick individuals, right? Obviously. I mean, hello, right? We all know, right? But there are lots of different people that have different ideas about this, and there's reasons for it. Positive drug tests lead to child abuse hotline referral. By Catherine Wittenberg, Wittenburg, the Tampa Tribune, and it was posted June 28th. So she writes here, Tallahassee, starting next month, Florida's Social Service Agency will refer every welfare applicant who fails a drug test to a child abuse hotline. And they said state officials deny the drug test results may be used to remove children from their parents, but civil rights activists fear it will. Beginning Friday, anyone applying to the state for temporary cash assistance must pass a drug test to receive benefits. Applicants must pay the test cost, which will be refunded for those who pass. And that upfront expense could exceed $100, according to state documents. For those who need a medical review to confirm that the drug detected is one for which they have a legal prescription. In a memorandum dated June 24th, the Department of Children and Families directed staff to refer every applicant testing positive for drugs to Florida's Child Abuse Hotline for review to initiate an assessment or an offer for services. So positive drug tests will lead to child abuse hotline referral. This is what they're talking about. So they said that means a child protection investigation, said Maria Kanan, Associate Legal Director of the American Civil Liberties Union of Florida, which is expected to challenge the constitutionality of the drug test law. And the abuse hotline is intended to protect Florida's children from neglect or abuse, not from a positive drug test, Kanan said. When you're talking about a search that is unconstitutional to begin with, to then use the result of that search to insert the arm of the state into a family and potentially tear that family apart is unconscionable. The hotline directive, which appeared nowhere in the drug test legislation, surfaced in a draft rule earlier this month. At the time, DCF representatives stressed that the rule was in preliminary form. A referral to the hotline will probably trigger a visit to the applicant's home, DCF spokesman Joe Folick said, though not necessarily by a child protection investigator. Instead, he said, it may be a local contractor who connects families with drug abuse treatment or counseling. We're going to assess the needs of the family, Folick said. Our goal is to always to keep families together and give them the tools to stay together. If DCF finds that children are in immediate danger, the department will remove them, he said, but it is not intended to be, nor will it be, a mechanism for children to be removed only because of a positive drug test. So I think that's really interesting. I think a lot of people would have some really heated debates and whatnot about that. I'm all for human rights, and I'm all for protecting human rights and protecting that includes everybody's rights. You know what I mean? So not just child rights. I'm talking human rights. I can see both sides, and I think that both sides would have an argument there. There's people that say that's unconstitutional and that's just opening up the door for all kinds of problems. But then again, there's another side of it that says no, but as a community, I mean, if you test positive for drugs that you have no prescription for and you're just a person's using drugs, why not get that person some help? And some people would say, well, it's their choice if they want to do drugs and hurt themselves and kill themselves and be involved in the drug trade industry and, all this stuff. And if there's children in the home, it's an issue, And so it's kind of like, what's the right thing to do? It's kind of like, well, what's the right thing to do in all the cases involving children? You know if a child is being abused, you make the phone call. Absolutely you do. But do people really do that? No, they don't. They just allow the child to be abused and they allow the child to be killed. And then, later on they cry the blues, oh, I should have made the phone call. It's like, well, yeah, hello, you know what I mean? The sad thing is that many times children are not removed from homes, like these people said here from DCF, saying, well, our intention is to keep families together, and they quite often make the wrong decisions. I mean, you can see this in all the headlines that pop up, that deal with these situations where there had been multiple calls to and multiple reports of abuse and substance abuse and drug abuse and child abuse and whatnot to the different child protection service agencies, and the children are not removed, and then you get you find out 8 months later, or even a year or two later, that the child has been killed and murdered, and sometimes buried out in the backyard. So really pathetic. The whole thing is pathetic. People that have children and are using drugs, shame on you if you're not doing the right thing by your children. I don't care. It's a sick and twisted society. I was a drug user. I know all about it. I know why I was doing drugs. You know what I mean? And I'm not a promoter of drug use. My brother was a cocaine addict and killed himself. Did he kill himself because of the drugs, or did he kill himself because of the abuse? Did he kill himself because he sexually abused me? Who knows? But he killed himself anyway. He was manic depressive and he had all kinds of problems, and he needed help. You know what I mean? But he was offered help. It wasn't like he wasn't offered help. I know all about drug use. You want to talk about somebody who knows about drugs, you know what I mean? Like, I know about what people's lives are when they're using drugs, and I know what people go through year after year after year when they are heavy-duty drug users, you know what I mean? So I know all about this. I've lost friends and drug deals gone bad, been shot down in their driveways. I've been part of kidnapping situations. I've been kidnapped by drug dealers and held at gunpoint. I know about drugs and the damage that they do, and the damage that because of the issues that surround the whole thing. So for these people to sit here and kind of back up illegal drug use by saying, oh, it's unconstitutional, if you fail a drug test, You know, if I go in and I fail a drug test, then I should get some help. You know what I mean? If you're going to fail a drug test and you have children in the home, there should be somebody looking in. And it doesn't mean that they're going to remove the children. What it does guarantee is that those children are getting their needs met. And then to offer the person who is on drugs, who is using these illegal drugs, these illegal prescriptions or illegal drugs, street drugs, whatever they're using, to offer them some help and say, look, you want a opportunity to have some help and to get cleaned up and to do the right thing by your family. Here's some services and stuff like this. Whether they will use them is entirely possible that they won't. Until they decide that they need to change their life, which I did at the age of 21, thank God, after 9 years of drug use, which is ridiculous but true. And so, people have to make up their own minds. But I still think that, I understand both sides of the argument on this one, right? And I totally see why, both sides are pretty valid. You know what I mean? Like one side would be saying, oh, unconstitutional. How dare they do something like that? And then there's another side saying, yeah, but, there's an opportunity here to help these people, who are failing these drug tests and who may possibly be hurting their children or neglecting their children or, just not doing right by the children by making wrong choices. I mean, have you ever seen some of these, people who are, who are heavy duty heroin addicts and drug users, do a good job taking care of their children? I mean, maybe some of them do, but some of them don't. Quite often, so a lot of these headlines that we see pouring in, rolling in, even one from the other day, there was a headline of a little child who had a portion of his scalp was ripped off, and he was beaten, sexually used, and he was 3 years old, little boy, and he was hung from the ceiling from like one of those sexual, sex garters or whatever, sex belts, and he was sexually used. Well, it turns out that the babysitter traded him for drugs. So it wasn't even the mother. It was, I guess, somebody who was looking after the child. Someone was looking after the child and traded the child to some neighbors who then sexually used that child and tore half that child's scalp off and beat the child and raped that child or whatever they did to the child. Absolutely sick, disgusting, and twisted, and all over drugs. So you guys want to argue with me about drug use in children, I got something to say. Let me tell you that. I grew up around people using drugs. I knew people who had children who were using drugs, who were not making the right choices for their children, and who were hurting their children. And I've seen this firsthand. You want to talk to me about people who use drugs and have any involvement with children? I got lots and lots of stories to tell you. And so does the newspaper. So do the headlines. So does the internet. With all of these headlines pouring in of children, precious babies being sold to the sex trade industry, the child sex trade industry for drugs. Their parents just sell them off. They don't sell them; they just trade them for drugs. They wait around and they see who they can get to take their child off their hands for drugs. So you want to tell me we got a real problem here? Society does, and there'll be whole group of people that will be lobbying for the constitutional rights of the drug users. That's like people that lobby for the constitutional rights of sexual predators and people who have been arrested and found guilty of molesting and sexually using up to 200 children, and there will be people screaming out for their rights. Well, I mean, hey, I'm all for human rights, but you do the crime, you do the time. So these people who are using illegal drugs or street drugs or prescriptions that are not their own and are caught, because they're involved in a drug test and they don't pass it, well, why not have somebody step in and make sure that they're not hurting their children? I'm all for it. I think it's great. I think that everybody should have to deal with that because why? Because children are dying, sadly enough. And, people say, well, why should the whole world have to pay just because a few stupid people are killing children? Because we have to change this. This has got to stop. And the only way that we're going to be able to stop this is really by shock. It's going to have to be like, okay, we're going to stop this. And it's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, but this has got to be done. You know what I mean? Something has to happen. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If people are afraid to have, if a family or somebody is afraid to have any child protection service agency come into their home, what are they hiding? That's my question. What are they hiding? Right? Possible neglect, possible abuse. right? Families that are paranoid about somebody coming in to check to make sure everything is okay. There's got to be something going on. There's got to be something wrong, because otherwise they would have nothing to fear. You know, it's like people just saying automatically, okay, we're guilty. We don't want anybody coming around because we're guilty. It's a whole guilty thing. You know, it's like, you know, the only people that would be concerned and afraid of that would be people that were not doing the right thing by their children. Because otherwise, what would be there shouldn't be a fear of that. There shouldn't be any fear of losing children if you're doing the right thing by your children, right? So to me, it's just it's a cop out. It's garbage. You know, I'm all for it. I think it's great, and I think that anytime there's children involved and you have drug users in the home and people in the home who are using drugs, substance abuse, and this type of thing, that there should be an investigation. Absolutely, because these people are not going to necessarily make the right decisions for their children, and if they're found that they are, well, that's fine. Offer some help to the person with the substance abuse and say, you know what, you know, there's help, you know, you can't cope, you know, you don't have to hurt your child, right? There's help, and you know, whatever resources, you know, they can offer within the area, within the local area. You know, I think it's great, you know, but just to say, oh, well, you know, that's just ridiculous, it's unconstitutional. It's like, well, it's unconstitutional to beat and abuse and sexually use children, but hey, it's happening all over the place. I don't see a whole lot of people standing up to protect children. There's always going to be all these groups out here trying to protect the abusers and trying to protect the people who are, you know, really not on the up and up and not doing the right thing by children. There's always those types, you know, that are willing to do that, you know. And I mean, to me, it's like, no, let's stand up for the children and let's make sure that they're okay, right? Because this is the whole goal. It's not to rip families apart. It's not to, you know, people say, oh, yes, it is. But that's because a lot of people have lost their children for reasons such as abuse, right? And they're unhappy about it. You know what I mean? There's a whole lot of people screaming out, you know, I lost my children. It's like, well, what were you doing to them? That's my big question. You know what I mean? What were you doing to them to lose your children? Seems to me it'd have to be something pretty bad, because they don't even remove the kids that are being abused half the time. You know, so I don't. There is a whole lot of people that you know, with especially with the, you know, parental alienation and you know, couples that split, that, you know, one of the parents blames the other parent and says they were the abuser when actually it was the other one. Right now we know that this happens because the world is a sick and twisted place, right? But the thing is there's a whole lot of other people out there who have abused their children and lost their children, and they're still crying the blues about it. It's like, well, what were you doing to your children to lose them? You know, like, this is just absolutely pathetic, and people need to straighten up. I don't mind being the conscience of an abused child. You know, I don't mind being the voice for these abused children out here, because somebody needs to do it. It's very unpopular. Nobody wants to hear it, you know. Nobody wants to see anything about this. Nobody wants to even know about it. But it needs to be talked about, and it needs to be addressed. And all of these, you know, different situations that are coming up, you know, and this different stuff, you know, everyone's going to have an opinion on it. But my opinion is always going to side with the children at all times, because they are the most vulnerable group. They are the ones that will get hurt if anything goes down. And, you know, you have children around drugs, not a good idea. Not a good idea at all. And so I tend to, you know, to voice my opinion on the side of the children, you know, because I think that if somebody's using drugs and they're involved in substance abuse, and they have, you know, children, one or two children, and they fail the drug test, and then they have someone coming in to check on them, what do they have to fear if they're not doing anything wrong? As long as they're not abusing those children and they're meeting those children's needs, the children have enough food, and they're not able to get a hold of the drugs, you know, there's no drug paraphernalia and drugs sitting around that the child can get into, and everything seems to be pretty up and on hunky-dory, then the children are not going to be removed from the home. So what would they have to fear? That's my question. But, you know, take a look around at all the reports out there about people who trade their children and sell their children for drugs, for drug money. And these children, little precious babies and children, end up in the child sex industry, whether it's, you know, child pornography or just ending up in the actual child sex trade, slave trade. You know, just check it out, because this is what's happening. And a lot of times it's drug related. You know, parents will do anything for their next hit. They'll do anything for that next high. Right? A lot of times some of those drugs are heavy duty, and some of them will do anything for that next high, including sell off their kids or trade their kids for their next high, because they need that high. And this is really sad, but this is the truth. And people don't like to admit the truth. People don't like to see the truth. They want to think that this is a very much a fairy tale world where everything is just great for children. Well, it's not. And who's paying the price? The poor kids are. So I'm all for that, and I think it's great, and I hope that they do enforce it, and I hope that those people that are crying out about constitutional rights for people who are doing things that are against the law will think about it. You know what I mean? Like people who are using drugs, and have children really should be checked up on, as far as I'm concerned. And they should, because if there's nothing going on and there's no abuse, then fine and dandy. But at least someone's checking in on those children. So I'm all for it. I have some good friends here in the chat room, Gypsy Witch and Maisie. I'm glad you could be here with me, my sisters, my friends. It's really something, some of this stuff, and it's all a good argument. I know lots of people will have something to say about this. I've actually seen a lot of articles posted already about this. So, and it's we have to be a voice for these children. They don't have a voice, and without somebody speaking out on their behalf, they really don't have anyone speaking out for them. You know what I mean? So it's important to not overlook the situation, right? And to just always take the side of the adults, because adults, don't have relationships with children usually, right? I mean, it's like adults think about adults, right? And so quite often when you see stuff like this, people become really up in arms because they'll think about the situation. They'll only be looking at it at the adult's point of view. And they won't be thinking about the children who are sitting around who have no food to eat, and dirt, needles, drug paraphernalia, and garbage all over the floor, possibly haven't had, a bath for like 2 or 3 weeks because their parent's nodding out and is using drugs, and then somebody else comes around and sexually uses the child because the parents are not paying attention, or whoever the caregivers are. And then the child is sexually used in the situation because nobody's paying attention, and possibly even being sexually used because the parent is selling them off for drugs. And this happens a lot. So I hope people will realize that. Don't skip over the headlines. Like, absolutely do not skip over the headlines. I mean, this is my request, that people read the headlines, because this is the reality of what these poor kids are going through out here. That's the reality of it. Each one of these poor kids deserves to have their story told, and each one of these kids deserves to have some justice and justification and restitution in this. And will they get it? Probably not. And they will have to live with a lifetime of knowledge and memories of what happened to them as children. And so, this is absolutely horrific. And then there'll be a whole group of people saying, well, so does it really matter? Yes, it really does. And, there's a whole lot of us out here who are willing to be unpopular and keep on speaking out. So it's so important, don't skip over the headlines, because you can see then what's really happening to children. A lot of people don't like to read those headlines. They find it very disturbing. And, a lot of people don't like to read about abused children because they find it very disturbing. But it's the truth and the reality of what this mess is all about, and why we're doing what we're doing to try to stop child abuse. And why it's so important that everybody not give up on this and just decide that it's too big of a problem, right? Because it is, actually. But I'm not giving up. I mean, I will, my last dying breath, be doing this. So, however long I've got, this is what I'll be doing. I hope that it just encourages people to not skip over those headlines and realize that this is happening, and always, always keep in mind that there's children involved. And when there's children involved, there's a possibility for abuse to be going on. And these children are so vulnerable. They have no one to protect them and no one to try to help them, to save their lives. Do what you can to get the education and the information out there to people, and get involved one way or another. Help somebody, help some group out there who's doing something good, on behalf of children, right? It's really important. So thanks, Gypsy Witch. Gypsy Witch said never shut up. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, I appreciate you being here, because I know you're here almost all of my shows, and you catch my archives, and you're just always here, and I appreciate it. And I love you guys, and I love you, Maisie and Gypsy Witch. Have a great night, everybody. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, same time, same place, 7 o'clock a.m. instead of 6 a.m., with one child abuse survivor to another, and then Friday as well, same time, same place. So have a great night, everybody, and, just do what you can. Get involved, right? These poor kids out here don't deserve this, and, it's certainly not their fault. They do need all the help that they can get. So keep them in mind, and remember that this is going on, whether we choose to think about it or not. Children are being abused. They're dying They're being killed. They're being murdered. They're being sexually abused. They're being used, misused, mistreated in every way. Just because we don't want to think about it doesn't mean it's not happening, right? So keep them in your thoughts and keep them in your prayers. Thanks everybody. Have a great night. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.